ओके।
सर नमस्ते, नमस्कार।
कैसे हैं धनंजय जी?
सर ठीक, आप कैसे हैं सर?
बस बिल्कुल ठीक। और आपने आज मौका दिया आप सब लोगों से जुड़ने का, बात करने का। जो पता लगा ऑर्गेनाइजिंग कमेटी में संगीता जी भी हैं, शालिनी भी हैं, अमित भी, और अंजलि तो कोऑर्डिनेट कर रही है पूरा इवेंट।
जी जी जी
सर आपने
सर।
आपने समय दिया, वी आर थैंकफुल टू यू सर। ये तो टीम वर्क है, सब लोग मिलके अच्छा कर रहे हैं। अंजलि ने अच्छे से संभाला हुआ है। शालिनी और अमित और हमारी संगीता जी
एक्सटेंडेड इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं। सीआई का एक्सटेंशन आईपी यूनिवर्सिटी, आईपी का एक्सटेंशन सीआई।
So sir, I just request you, if you permit, then we can formally begin the session.
I think you are seeking permission from your dean.
Yeah, sir. I'm asking the dean sir only.
Sir, we all are here dean. So there is no need to take permission from me. We all are equally stakeholder of this program. There is no hierarchy in our department.
Then thank you so much, sir. We always need your support and motivation for doing all the things. So let's begin with the session. Formally, we can begin. A very good afternoon to all and one present here. Respected Professor Pankaj Arora ji, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And I welcome you, sir. And on behalf of University School of Education, Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, I take this opportunity to welcome all the participants and the resource person of the day, Professor Pankaj Arora ji. So now, today on the very fifth day of this faculty development program, so we are having the two sessions. The first session is already completed, and now we welcome you, sir, in this second session. So before we formally begin the program, I request our technical team, Samaira and Paras, to please play the Kulgeet of our university.
लाएंगे हम सच का सवेरा, गुरु कृपा का होगा बसेरा। विद्या की लो और लगन से हट जाएगा यह तम घनेरा। इस धरा से आसमां तक हम बना ले अपनी ज्ञान गरिमा। अपने श्रम से कौशलों से हम बढ़ा ले अपनी मान महिमा। फैल जाए अपनी सुगंध हर दिशा में, प्रगति पथ पर ख्याति अपनी हो हवा में। बादलों से ऊंची अपनी उड़ान, हम करेंगे विश्व का हम इंद्रप्रस्थ को
playing this beautiful Kulgeet of our university. Now I would like to request Dr. Shalini Yadav to please formally welcome Professor Pankaj Arora ji. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Anjali. Thank you so much. It's always an honor to introduce somebody you know, and we all fondly call him Pankaj sir. So Pankaj sir, namaskar and hearty welcome to Guru Gobind Singh Indra University. I wish we were offline, but we are online thanks to COVID-19. So Professor Pankaj Arora he's been the director and he is the director of Institute of Lifelong Learning in the University of Delhi, right? And Pankaj sir has been with the Central Institute of Education, Department of Education, University of Delhi for the last 24 years. So it's like CI is synonymous with Pankaj sir, right? And sir has authored numerous articles, research papers in multifaceted, multidisciplinary national and international conferences. He has 8 books to his credit, 2 edited books on NEP 2020, which makes him a very special speaker for us because he has written on NEP 2020, right? And he has written another edited book which is on energizing educational concerns and social needs, and which has been published by ICSSR and Macmillan. And he's also written on pedagogy of political science, sex education in schools, profiling the need of sex and safety in education, a special case of working children, then democratic classroom needs, significance and implications for social science. So when you see, it's such a diverse area on which Pankaj sir has been writing, and all of us can immediately form a connect with it. And of course, he has delivered a number of keynote addresses, inaugural addresses, as an eminent speaker in FDPs, MDPs, webinars, workshops, right, on NEP 2020, which have been organized by universities all over India and abroad, right, like JNU, Punjab University, JMI, RI, Ajmer, so on and so forth, right? And he has also been contributing in newspaper editorials on NEP 2020, which was last published on the 21st of August in Dainik Jagran, right, in 2020, and in Navbharat Times as well, right? And he is a person who writes.
I think there is some network issue.
I think there is some technical glitch.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Learning has been a member of the UGC expert group for development of educational framework for global citizenship. He has been a member of the NCT committee for development of the 2-year BEd curriculum in the light of NEP 2020. Has been a UGC expert committee member for formulation of the national higher education qualification framework. And apart from this, a number of them, there is a long list, right? So his contribution in the field of teacher education is well documented. With these words, Pankaj sir, I, on behalf of my dean, Professor Narendra Joshi, on behalf of my colleague, Professor Sangeeta Chauhan, Dr. Amit Ahuja, Dr. Anjali Shakil, I extend a very warm welcome. Thank you for accepting this invitation. And now over to you, Pankaj sir.
Ali, before Pankaj sir, may I say something? I could not resist myself.
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
It is important for not for Pankaj sir, for the participants. Pankaj sir is associated with our university since its inception only since 2008. जब हमारा फाउंडेशन स्टोन रखा जा रहा था, तो he is one of the person who guided us throughout the journey of our teacher education. He is a pillar of support. As a strength, he is with us, and he guided to our students. Even many of our MEd scholars later done PhD under his able guidance, like Neeraj Gehlot. I still remember she came to me, sir, I am very lucky that Pankaj sir is guiding me. मैंने कहा, you are very fortunate because he has also guided me since my BA days. So I consider him as my mentor, as my teacher, as my elder brother, and he is very, very kind enough that in spite of so many professional and academic and administrative duties, as you have already narrated Shalini in his introduction, he is very kind enough whenever we
I think Sir,
Today all
actually,
India
there is some network issue.
के सामने काफी लोग जो हैं जो बाहर से भी हैं without taking much of the time. I thank you for sparing your valuable time, and I request you to deliver on the theme because this is 5th day and this session is very important. We would like to hear from you. Over to you, Professor Pankaj Arora sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Dhananjay sir, for the warm welcome of Dr. Pankaj Arora, who is the resource person of the day. We welcome you, sir. Now the session is open to you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so very much, mentor for this faculty development program, Vice Chancellor of Indraprastha University, Dr. Mahesh Verma, Dean Education at Guru Govind Singh Indraprastha University, my dear friend and my younger brother, Professor Dhananjay Joshi, dear colleagues, Dr. Anjali, Dr. Shalini, Dr. Amit, Professor Sangeeta. As I mentioned in the beginning, like CI and School of Education at Indraprastha University are extended forums of education which are really doing good work in the field of education. And now when I say and see my younger brother as dean there, I really feel very proud.
It's all your blessings.
Very rightly, very rightly taken up the theme for this faculty education, faculty development program, NEP 2020, a roadmap for future India. Very recently, one of my book on national education policy entitled राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति रचनात्मक सुधारों की ओर, अगर मैं इस टाइटल को फैकल्टी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम के टाइटल से रिलेट करूं तो बोथ आर कॉम्प्लीमेंटिंग टू ईच अदर. One is saying it's a roadmap for future India, other is side saying it's for the constructive reforms. So रचनात्मक सुधार और futuristic vision के साथ education policy 2020 is there before us. Friends, the theme, the specific title for the day which I have been assigned by the organizers is Empowering Higher Education with Quality Research and Effective Governance and Leadership. So when I say the title which is assigned, so title you can break it into pieces, into small themes, sub-themes. One is empowering higher education. I cannot think of a better word in the light of education policy, how education policy is going to affect higher education. So you people have very rightly given this nomenclature to this theme, empowering higher education. And then how it's empowering higher education? When we are in higher education, we do talk of two strong components. One is teaching, of course, in higher education. Another is research. And today only somebody was interviewing me on the theme of quality education. And the person asked me, how do you see the role of a teacher in higher education? And my response to that question was, in higher education, we look at a teacher's responsibility in threefold. One, it's like a teacher is meant for teaching. So this role is there as the basic role of a university teacher, of higher education teacher. Second is important, which you have also picked as quality researcher. And third is extended services. So this threefold role and responsibility, which has been conceptualized around 55 years back by Kothari Commission, when they defined university teacher, followed up by 1986 policy and then curriculum frameworks of different CBCS or LOCF by UGC, they have always been defining university people as people who are teaching in higher education institutions, who are engaged in research, and who are looking forward to perform their responsibilities towards society in general and extended services. Extended services, I mean extension of their services in other professional bodies. Like if I am teaching in CI and I am participating in this faculty development program, this is my extended service. If I am participating in any of the committee of UGC or NCTE or NCRT or any state SCRT, then this is my extended service to those institutions. And this is what is meant for university teachers, that they should not be restricting themselves to one responsibility in a classroom teaching. That is the primary responsibility. I am not undermining the importance of classroom teaching, but at the same time, I am suggesting, I am proposing, I am reiterating the ideas which have already been envisioned in Kothari Commission recommendations, that quality research, generation of new knowledge is also an important responsibility of all of us at higher education institutions. Along with this, it comes to effective governance and leadership. You people are fortunate enough to attend this faculty development program being organized by Indraprastha University School of Education, because they themselves is a model for providing multiple governance and leadership personalities from their university. They have given, if I am correct, around 7-8 vice chancellors they have given in last 10 years. If I am correct, they have given leaders to multiple national institutions in the country. So if we want to look at effective governance and leadership model, then IP University is, I think, is one of the good example, which is already giving leadership to multiple institutions, be it at state level or it as national level. So now I will try to break these three ideas, decode them. What does we mean by empowering higher education? What do we mean by quality research? And what do we mean by effective governance and leadership? And how these three important aspects have been discussed in National Education Policy 2020. First line of this title is suggesting empowering higher education. So how this policy is empowering higher education institutions? My understanding says we can empower somebody not by restrictions, not by hand-holding, not by policing, but by liberating, by giving space, by giving opportunities to work, carry on their own research, and by empowering them on the matters of decision making. As we all know, universities have always been autonomous institutions. Now this policy is suggesting something beyond that. Policy is saying it's not about autonomous institutions at university, but this autonomy which policy is suggesting, graded autonomy. This graded autonomy will be provided to 3 levels of higher education institutions. What are those 3 levels? First, students. Students will be given this autonomy. Number 2, teachers. We teachers will be getting more autonomy. And number 3, institutions, whether those are colleges or those are universities. Those will be given autonomy. Now I'll explain these 3 terms which I suggested: graded autonomy to students, to teachers, and to institutions. Second part of policy, which is dedicated to higher education, in that total 11 chapters have been dedicated to higher education, and last part of it is defining governance model, leadership model, etc. Now, policy is suggesting each educational institution in higher education should be multidisciplinary institution. First thing, holistic education. You people understand, you people are School of Education colleagues who are attending it. do know, and many of the participants are aware, when we talk of aims and objectives of education, we say objective of education is holistic development of an individual, optimum development of an individual. Whatever potential is there, identifying that potential and nurturing it to the optimum level is the aim and objective of education. Now, when we say optimum development of optimum and holistic development of individual, then holistic we mean all-round development of the individual. If an individual has cognitive domain, he or she has physical aspect, biological aspect, emotional aspect, intellectual aspect, moral aspect, all those domains need to be nurtured, carefully nurtured to optimum development, optimum stage. That is the mandate of education. And now policy is suggesting all institutions should be institutions of holistic and multidisciplinarity. Holistic and multidisciplinarity. This means institutions which are running courses of different disciplines: sciences, social sciences, humanities, languages, vocational education, etc., professional education, etc. So no institution is supposed to be there post 2030. 10 years period is suggested for this transition from the existing situation to a multidisciplinary institution situation. So policy is suggesting each institution should be multidisciplinary institution. And then policy at the same time is suggesting that those multidisciplinary institutions should allow people to move from one domain to another, one discipline to another. So this movement would not be horizontal only, but vertical as well. Policy do allow us to break those tight compartments of streams which were existing there for multiple years. Science stream, within sciences, we have further broken it into natural sciences and physical sciences. Then we come to social sciences, then we come to management and commerce, then we come to vocational studies. These are strict, rigid, compartmentalized domain which have been existing there in multiple institutions, and above that, these are existing in our minds. And this has led to a hierarchy of disciplines. When I say hierarchy of disciplines, I say it with a responsibility that people and our academic world have started acknowledging certain disciplines as superior to others. If I am allowed to name, we consider medical science, engineering, management, business studies and economics, social sciences, languages, vocational education. Now, the sequence in which I have spelled them is a hierarchical sequence, which is generally prevailing in most of the educational institutions, in the minds of market forces, in the minds of parents, in the minds of students. Now, where from this hierarchy came? This hierarchy is silently getting its space over the years, the way we have been treating people from medical sciences, engineering, then management, business studies, mathematics, economics, then social sciences, then languages, and then vocational education. We look upon the people from vocational stream as if they are following certain skills and they are not doing something great. But at the same time, in our country, we are starving to have skilled people. We have very less, around 1% or even less than 1% skilled labor. They are either plumbers, electricians, driver, cook, whatever. You name any skilled labor and you will find less than 1% is formally qualified to be that skill oriented people. Plumbers, they have learned out of their experience and learned out of the guidance and mentorship of a Ustadji. Car mechanics, 50% of mechanics in our country are not formally educated. Whereas in Korea, they have more than 17% population, which is qualified skilled labor. And that makes a big difference. So what I'm trying to suggest here is very simple. We need to break this hierarchy, and policy is giving us a golden opportunity. Policy is saying no tight, rigid frame of streams is allowed. No tight compartments are allowed. People are free to choose their areas of interest, whether it is from sciences or social sciences or languages or applied social sciences or applied arts, whatever it can be. If you want to study political science with your mathematics, you're most welcome. If you want to opt chemistry along with Sanskrit, you're most welcome. If you choose hard sciences like physics with a combination of hard social science, which is history, core social science, you're most welcome to go ahead with this combination. So this is the beauty and strength which I think is empowering higher education. Higher education doesn't mean only preparing you for some specialized stream. Some time back, I was attending to a discussion on the objectives of having university system, objective of having universities in the country. And I am delighted to share with you all. I learned that day that universities are meant for academic discussions, academic discourses, academic debates, to prepare people for their larger roles in society. Not only as an accountant, not only as a teacher, not only as a medical professional, not only as a lawyer, but for a larger role. University produce people who think rationally. University help people to debate issues, undercurrents of policies, undercurrents of legislation, social system, political system, economic system, caste system, religions, everything. University provide a platform to the people where people are encouraged to debate, to discuss, to rationally approve or reject the existing knowledge and to create new knowledge through researches. So that is the mandate of universities. I think much higher than just providing degrees, just helping people to acquire their graduation or post-graduation or doctorate, etc. Helping them to become rational, intelligent human beings. Whatever profession they are following, whatever domain they are following for their immaterial of that, irrespective of that. They are trained to be leaders for future. They are supposed to be leaders for the nation. You student unions, this concept is not there in schools, but it is there in the university system. And university student unions, election, etc. are being conducted Atal Lingdo Committee report, which came from Lingdo, we all know, was one of the election commissioner, and later he gave recommendations. Under his chairpersonship, a committee was constituted to help us identify role, responsibility, and objectives of having these student unions and how to conduct their election. So Lingdo committee didn't say student union should not be there, should not happen. It say these are the forums to provide opportunity to young people to grow as leaders for the nation. And we have seen multiple leaders who are present and in the past who came from, who got their energy and ability from student politics, student activism. Whether it's JP movement, it's Lohia, in the contemporary time, Arun Jaitley ji was there, product of student union politics. Ajay Makan ji is there, who is product of student union. This Meenakshi Lekhi, another MP is there, who is a product of student union. So student union, university system are bound to prepare people for the future, for the as safeguard intellectuals for the society, who can challenge government legislation, who can challenge, who can read between the lines of policies, who can analyze them. So this is one thing when I say higher education institutions will feel empowered by getting this opportunity to have multidisciplinarity and holistic mode of education. This is one aspect. Students are given this autonomy and freedom to choose areas of their interest instead of हिंदी के साथ संस्कृत मिलेगा, इंग्लिश नहीं मिलेगा. पॉलिटिकल साइंस के साथ हिस्ट्री का कॉम्बिनेशन ले सकते हैं, इकोनॉमिक्स का ले सकते हैं, केमिस्ट्री का नहीं ले सकते. So all these restrictions will go. Whatever being offered in an educational institution, people are free to choose anything from that. I'm saying whatever is offered in an educational institution. Like IP University is a rich university having multiple courses from medical science. It has a very strong department of medical science. It has strong department of law. It has strong department of engineering colleges. It has strong department of education, English department. I mean to say sciences, commerce, management, BBA is one of the primary program of IP University. So such universities which has multidisciplinarity in their flavor, in their culture, are supposed to be developed into institutions of higher education. And those universities and institutions which are being run on, dependent on one mode of education, one type of institutions, they are supposed to, they will be given time of 10 years to transform into a multidisciplinary institutions. University of Delhi is another good example of multidisciplinarity. So this is one, that multidisciplinarity and holistic mode of education will help students, will give autonomy to students to pick areas of their interest, their choice. So no restrictions will be there. Number two, autonomy to teachers. As a teacher, we are supposed to develop it, as I mentioned earlier. As university teacher, I am not supposed to exhaust myself in classroom teaching only. But at the same time, I am supposed to generate new knowledge, part and parcel of quality research. And for that, we are given again multiple avenues and opportunities through different research projects from ICSSR, from History Philosophy Research Association, from our own universities, from UGC, etc. And now policy is proposing to have a separate organization for research foundation, and other agencies coming up. This research foundation is supposed and is bound to develop, to motivate people of higher education to get into to not only develop their interest, but also to have opportunities of research before them. So policy is suggesting that there should be a separate research agency within higher education commission, within higher education, what we call it, Higher Education Commission of India, HECI, HECI, we popularly call. So in HECI, along with that, this quality research institution will be coming up to encourage people to go for research. So teaching and research. And along with research, we'll get opportunity to generate new knowledge in the domain where we are interested. Like while Dr. Shalini was introducing me, he did mention range of areas where I have been writing and working. Why and how? Just because of this flexibility, which allow me to complete my doctorate on sex education, publish my first book from ICSSR's funding, and then shifted to pedagogy of political science, democratic education, and now I am trying to analyze policy 2020 and try to get some space and learning in policy analysis. This freedom of publication and projects is another strong strength to people who are coming for higher education, who are part and parcel of higher education. The way our participants today, around 40, I have seen their number in the participant list, are there, and we are lucky enough that this quality research institution will be in place and promoting research projects from the higher education people. Institute of Eminence is another feature which my university is, through which we got around 900 crore rupees grant to promote research in the university. And I am very happy to share with you all, yesterday only our university received Excellence Research University Award, which is an international prestigious award from some international organization. I'm missing the name of the organization, but yesterday only we are conferred this award of research, which is making our university a distinct and unique university in context of research. So research, as I mentioned in the beginning, is another important aspect which need to be developed among all teachers of higher education institutions. And policy is providing us another opportunity by establishing a separate agency to promote research in university system and to develop our interest area, the way I have developed adolescence education as an important aspect and area of higher education and teacher education. And this paper is now in place in NCERT, in many of universities' elective options, adolescence education, sex education. Dhananjay ji, during his time, has developed human rights education, moral education. So all these areas can be developed by university teachers, provided they are given avenue, opportunity and funding to research them properly and to develop them as an independent elective option, if not as a compulsory option. And third phase, a third autonomy is autonomy to the institutions. Policy is giving autonomy to institutions. Policy is saying the culture of affiliated institutions will go. This affiliated institution business need to be upgraded into the institutions of into autonomous institutions, whether it's universities or these are independent colleges. They are supposed to be autonomous. Now, this autonomous means they are free to develop courses of local needs. They are free to develop programs as per the needs of local context, local region, local languages, local knowledge. And they are free to not only to develop courses, into these local context, but also to international collaborations can take place. International tie-up and MOUs can be signed by them directly with the institutions in country and outside country. They are free to develop their own curriculum, they are free to decide their research guidelines, and they are free to conduct their own examination and to award their autonomous degree to students. So this is something which will be coming up as third level through policy, which I strongly believe is empowerment of higher education. Higher education cannot be empowered by putting restrictions. You people are very skeptical and apprehensive because of this competitiveness of getting A grade, B grade in NAC and other accreditation bodies, according to similarly the way teacher education is getting, which is my domain. Policy is suggesting this competition is healthy, and if my quality of research is not able to bring me A+, then I need to look into it and upgrade it. If my university is not able to get certain grants, then I need to upgrade my institution to get entitlement to receive those grants. So healthy competitiveness is always good for the growth of individuals as well as for the growth of institutions. Another interesting change which policy is proposing to have programs of liberal arts, BA liberal science, liberal arts and liberal research. Instead of having BA become BSc, because now no stream-based courses would be there. So what we are calling them, bachelors in liberal studies. Now, a bachelor's, no bachelor of science, no bachelor of commerce, no bachelor of arts. Bachelors of liberal science, liberal studies. In that, people can have their own combinations. Like I know certain universities working presently, which allow people from mechanical engineering to opt economics. To opt mechanical engineering, people can opt papers from management courses. Mechanical engineering students are allowed to take up English or sociology as one of their interest area. I know such universities in India as well as outside India, and they are shining because their students are studying what they want to study. And when you do something which is of your own interest and which is of your own potential, then obviously you are bound to shine. And when students shine, obviously universities and university system get growth with that. In this liberal arts, policy is proposing to bring some component of vocational education. 15% component of vocational education. How this vocational education will work? Whatever discipline you are teaching will have 4 components. Academic component of the concerned discipline, 20% interdisciplinary component, 15% vocational component, and 15% skill-oriented component. So each program, each bachelor degree would have combination of these 4 important features. And then students who would be passing out through those new models would not be remaining unskilled because they are getting 20% skills related to their discipline which they are studying as their major or as their minor. 15% they are getting vocational orientation associated with their own liberal domain. 50% they are getting strength into the discipline they are specializing. So this way, policy is helping us that students after acquiring a certificate or a degree should not be asking what next, but they should be knowing what next. That is important. आज क्या होता है After class 10, you talk to a young child, young adolescent, and he or she will say, I don't know. What next? I don't know. After 12th, I don't know. After graduation, people are not certain what actually they want to do. So that ambiguity need to be addressed. Policy has attempted to address that at very systematic manner when it is proposing to have liberal options with combination of content foundation, skill education, vocational education, along with other components of which are required for certain hands-on experience for that domain, which can relate it to employability. Policy is proposing, the way policy is proposing a whole new structure for school education, 5+3+3+4. Same ways, policy is proposing a whole new structure to higher education. It is proposing now 4 years of bachelor's degree, 1 year of master's degree, and then PhD. It's doing away with MPhil. So 4 + 1 + your doctorate if you are interested and if you are going for. Now 4-year program would be either research intense or internship intense. Either if you want to go for higher education and you want to go for researches, 4th year would be dedicated to research in concerned discipline. The way University of Delhi has recently not only prepared but put it on its website 4 years undergraduate program structure, which is proposing 4th year as either intense research or intense internship related with that discipline. If we go for this internship, that means we want to go to the field of work, the world of work in my discipline, my major or my minor. And if I want to go for research, then 4th year is dedicated to research. If you want, you are most welcome to visit University of Delhi's website and look into the structure for this 4-year bachelor's degree. Policy is also proposing a new regulation for higher education. Now, this new regulation will not have multiple regulatory bodies working parallel to each other. Like veterinary council is there, teacher education council is there, dental council is there. So this policy is proposing that except for law and except for medical, all other professional bodies would become part and parcel of Higher Education Commission of India. And this Higher Education Commission of India, what policy has proposed, need to be chaired by somebody at par with the status of Minister of Education, cabinet level, cabinet minister of education, that level. So he or she need to be the chairperson. And along with that, there are 4 vertical agencies which will be looking after all other domains of education as expert and specialized agencies, like National Higher Education Regulatory Council, the first vertical of HECI, National Higher Education Regulatory Council. So there would be one regulatory council, which is professional in context of regulation. Regulation is regulation, whether you are doing it for liberal education or professional education or teacher education or veterinary council or whatever multiple councils are there. So one commission, one council, which is first vertical. Second vertical would be accreditation committee, accreditation council. Third, National Accreditation Council would be second vertical, which would be responsible for accreditation of institutions and their programs. Again, another professional agency to look into the business of accreditation, not multiple agencies doing accreditation. and basis of those accreditation would become basis for the grant and grade which you will be getting. You are getting it in this healthy competitive world. Third is Higher Education Grants Commission, Grants Council, sorry, not commission, council. That single body would be responsible for providing grants. Public funded institutions will get grant through this, whether they are universities of one type of or another, whether they are veterinary program running institutions or teacher education program running institutions or liberal education running institutions. They would be getting grants on the basis of their performance and their academic standards from this body. And fourth and last body, which is primarily academic bodies, General Education Council, which is responsible for curriculum development and to develop and propose mechanism for evaluation. Parallel to that, it will have different PSSB, Professional Standard Setting Body, PSSB. जितनी ये प्रोफेशनल बॉडीज हैं, जैसे मैंने नाम लिया NCTE या Veterinary Council, all these councils will become PSSB, and they would be doing another specialized task of developing curriculum and setting academic standards for the respective domain which they are meant for. So Higher Education Commission of India will have these 4 verticals. What is new? Professionalism is new. These verticals would not be catering to the needs and demands of one type of institutions, rather all institutions of higher education. So they would be working as professionals. If I am an expert of evaluation, I should be able to give suggestions for evaluation in medical science, evaluation in teacher education, evaluation in chartered accountancy, evaluation in MTech or other technical programs. If I am an expert of evaluation. Same ways, this was an example. Same ways, if there is a institution which need grant, has to come through Higher Education Grant Council. For regulation, there is another specialized agency. For academic purposes, there is 4th vertical, which is either GEC, General Education, for all liberal education, and PSSB for all professional courses, except for medical science and except for law. If we look at this regulatory body, it is promoting and demanding that people of higher education should be developed as effective leaders. They should not be just vice chancellors or directors of their institutions, but they should be effective leaders of their institutions. When we say effective, it means they should not only be giving results, but also showing a vision to the institution for next 10 years. They should be able to. Only then they would be institutions of higher education. Only then they would be leaders of higher education institutions. IIM Ahmedabad has already been working on preparation of certain modules to promote leaders in education, academic leaders. And they are identifying 3 components within an academic leader which they want to promote and nurture. One is purely administrative. I need to have some administrative bent. I need to understand the administration. Administration is not like academic research. Administration has its own meaning and definition and quick decision, shortcut. Without getting it a long term, I should be able to make it simple quick, no red tapeism, no passing the buck. But if something has been brought to me, I should be able to look into it. I should be able to dispose it off instead of just forwarding it to next table without giving my comments. Forward it for necessary action. If something has been brought to your knowledge and your notice as an administrator, you should be able to resolve it at your table. Or if you are not the competent authority, then at least you should be able to give some black and white recommendation whether this should be disposed of in this fashion or that fashion with some technical grounding. If it's a financial matter, I must know how to spend money, how to spend public money, institutional expenses, institutional funding. So what IIM is identifying, they are saying to be an academic leader, you need to have a bent for administration, a bent for financial matters, to deal with financial matters, and you should have a vision for the institution. We should take it forward. So what I suggest and propose that these three aspects of academic leadership need not only to be recognized, but also need to be formally taken up the way our bureaucrats are trained on the matters of administration. Same ways, there should be people who should be trained, formally taken into the field as part of their training to learn how to take decision, how to lead an institution from the front, how to dispose of whatever has been brought to your knowledge and has been brought to you for your consideration. तो ये कुछ पॉइंट्स हैं जो हायर एजुकेशन को एम्पावर करते हैं, हायर एजुकेशन में लीडरशिप को प्रमोट करने की बात करते हैं, हायर एजुकेशन में पॉलिसी 2020 जो 5 अगर मैं पॉइंट्स बताऊं, अगर मैं 5 पॉइंट्स में इसको सम अप करूं, हाउ इट इज प्रमोटिंग लीडरशिप अमंग यंग पीपल, तो मैं कहूंगा पॉलिसीज प्रपोजिंग India centric education. Indianness should be core part of education. Sustainability development goal 4 is proposing by 2030, especially clause 7 is suggesting that we should be able to provide a sustainable education model which should be taking us to have sustainable development for the nation. In higher education, we need to pay attention to its accessibility, to its neutrality, and to its high quality of research. And when I say Indianness, I mean Indian ethos, Indian knowledge, Indian thinkers, Indian constitutional values need to be given space in higher education. When I say sustainable development, I mean SDG goal 4, SDG 4, and specifically point 7, which is asking for sustainable development in context of employment as well as in context of environment, social environment, geographical environment, emotional environment. We need to identify strength from, we need to drive strength from Vedic period to the modern period. And whatever is scientific and rational there, whatever is sustainable there, we must pick it up for as part and parcel of higher education. We should try to be more independent, the way I suggested, autonomous. This autonomy should be leading to the not only financial autonomy, but also to academic autonomy. the way I suggested, its own curriculum, its own research designs. And last point, which I would like to say, because I thought of speaking for 45 minutes, I have already exceeded 15 minutes. Policy is giving a whole new model for administration of higher education institutions. So those details of that model I am not getting into at the moment, because those are talking of board of governors, and it is talking of the IDP, which would be having model experts from different discipline as part of board of governors. Skill competence councils supposed to be there. So all these changes, which I think would suppress the red tapeism in the system, suppress the delay tactics in the administration, will surely be helping us to empower higher education the way the theme has been thought of, quality research and through governance and leadership in higher education. So this is my understanding with respect to NEP and specific context of higher education, quality research and governance. I would be very happy to answer a few questions if there are. Rest is up to organizers how they want to take it forward. Over to you, Dr. Anjali.
Ji, sir. Thank you so much for such an enlightening session, and really it was very informative and lot of things we also came to know. And yes, sir, there is a question in the chat box. I can see that. That is, just a moment, sir, just a second. It was a question. Yes. All policies are as good as their implementations. What are the mechanism of quality check in the implementation of national education policy in universities? And then how can we ensure that higher education does not, HEC does not become another UGC? I think I is missing. It's a HECI. So this is the question, sir. I think 2-3 questions are asked. So I think I can take one by one. All policies are good as their implementations. So I think you must be telling that policy is good, but there is a problem in implementation. Then the question is that what are the mechanisms of quality check in the implementation of national education policy in universities? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali, for making the question so clear. See, whatever good policy is drafted, is prepared by the experts at national level. Now it's time for all of us at university level, at institution level, at my personal level as in the capacity of a teacher, to make sure that this is implemented not only in spirit, but in words. Each word and spirit should be transformed and translated into action now. And for that, we need to gear up the way I suggested. My university has already developed 4-year undergraduate program structure. We need to look into different provisions of policy, how this academic bank of credit will work. See, if I want to gear up for implementation of the policy, I need to start working on developing my institution into institution of multidiscipline. So what all new programs, just for your information and sharing, I am part of National Education Policy Implementation Committee of Ambedkar University, Delhi. So there we thought of, this is a specialized university for social sciences. So first thing which was proposed by the chairperson, Professor Ramachandran, he suggested, let us introduce some new courses which are need of the time and which will help university to become a university of multidiscipline. So certain science courses, certain management courses, the way JNU is upcoming now. JNU have started certain BTech courses, MBAs, and now next year they are planning to introduce medical science. So first thing, we need to gear up as an institution to make a multidisciplinary flavor of the institution. For that, we need infrastructure. For that, we need library. For that, we need human resources. For that, we need more classrooms, etc. And then we need curriculum in place in context of policy, the way policy is proposing liberal education. So those are certain preparations which can be started without waiting. I'm sure many of universities have already started, because nowadays, wherever we are talking, people are not talking about the features of policy, but they are talking how to roll it out the way this FDP is dedicated to, the future vision for education based on NEP 2020. Am I audible? I think Dr. Anjali's connection got a little weaker. Am I audible, Professor Joshi? Okay.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Right, thank you. So we need to identify areas like once I sat with a group and identified what all can be implemented without seeking guidelines from UGC or ministry or any higher body. We identified that more than 50% mandate of the policy can be implemented at institution level itself. Your founder, Vice Chancellor, Professor K.K. Agarwal was part of that group discussions, and he himself very profoundly announced that 50 to 70% area which has been mentioned, the new vision of policy, can be implemented without waiting for guidelines from UGC, HECI, or Ministry of Education. So those areas need to be identified. As I suggested, Professor Agarwal, your founder, Vice Chancellor, was part of that discussions. So those lists can always be obtained if you people sit together and start looking at the doables from education policy. I'm sure you will be able to identify what all can be done without any approval and guidance from higher authorities, and what all can be done at university level itself, where only universities AC and EC's mandate is required. So those need to be identified immediately, and we should be working in that direction. The way ITAP has been brought 2 days back, NCT has come up with a teacher education program. So School of Education at university can always start thinking what all institutions are suitable for this, because the first condition of ITAP is it would be introduced only in multidisciplinary institutions. So we need to identify those institutions. We need to start enriching their resources in context of labs and libraries and liberal areas of study. Only then we can be able to get affiliation for this pilot project of ITAP in 50 institutions of the country. So these are small steps which can be taken up, and we can look forward to implementation. Yes, whatever good policy you bring, you need more determination and more resources to make it happen, to execute it at the ground level. So that challenge is always there, but not necessary that 100% policy can be implemented in one go. No, there is a starting point. Let's start with 10% of it. Next year, another 15% of it. Next, because policy itself is suggesting a roadmap of 3, 4, 5 years to roll out. At graduation level, we need to work out for first year in 2020, and then other things can be developed gradually in 4 years. Master program, first batch of 4-year graduation will come out in 2026. Then we need to have 1-year master program in place. So accordingly, we can identify and set challenges and issues before us to be addressed at university level. Over to you, Dr. Anjali.
Ji. Thank you so much, sir, for answering the question so patiently. And I think that is very much clear to the participant who have asked the question. So Thank you very much. And I think, sir, there are no questions in the chat box. In fact, all the
In the chat
participants.
box, there are many participants, good
Yeah,
friends,
good.
and they are wishing, and my greetings to all of you.
They
Dr.
all are
Akash
appreciating the
Ranjan is there.
lecture.
Yeah, Dr. Parkha is there. So all these good friends are there.
Yeah.
Good evening to everyone.
Mhm. And they all are appreciating a lot, sir. It's a nice presentation, nice session, enriching session. So I do agree. It's a very enlightening session for all of us, and we all have learned a lot. And you have nicely elaborated your thoughts on empowering higher education with quality research and effective governance and leadership. We are really grateful to you, sir, for such an informative session. And in the beginning, you have rightly said that if we have to empower the higher education, we can do only by liberating, by giving space, and by empowering the teachers of the higher education. And by that, I think we can empower the higher education. And in between, sir, you have appreciated our university, Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha Universities, in so many aspects, in terms of the VCs we are having, and you have also talked about
Academic leaders you are nurturing.
academic leaders, and
I can see a person in this group who is a future leader of education.
yeah, sir. I understand that where you are talking about. So I do agree with that. And in fact, you have praised the multidisciplinarity nature of our university. And in fact, the Delhi University is also having the same nature. And in between, sir, I also want to congratulate. You were telling us in between your session that yesterday only the Delhi University has received the award. And in the morning, I have seen that Delhi University has bagged the Clarivate India Research Excellence Citation Awards 2021 in the Central Universities category. So many congratulations for you for that, sir, because you are the part of Delhi University and you are holding so many administrative.
All are proud of it.
You are
We all are proud of it. Yeah, thank you.
yeah, sir. And you are holding so many administrative duties also, na? You are having a lot of responsibilities. And one more thing, sir, I just want to tell that you have focused on the research foundation, the new research foundation, which this new education policy is talking about. So I think that new foundation will give us more opportunities to all the teachers of the higher education. So I think by that way, they can generate the knowledge. And I do agree, which you have shared, you have rightly said. And at the end of the session, I want to say that it's really an honor to have you with us on this platform. And I'm sure that your words will inspire all of us for doing the quality work and for empowering the higher education. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I can see Professor Dhananjay Joshi, sir, is also there. Sir, you want to say something? Dr. Shalini, if you can hear me. So I think, sir, now we have come to the end of the session.
Anjali.
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you, sir, for your very nice thanks. Sorry, I'm my some glitches at my part. Thank you very much for accepting our kind invitation for this FDP. And you have summarized everything very crystal and clear. And we hopefully will call you on offline mode for our very important guest lecture series. And you please come offline if government permits us to open the university. And I again take the opportunity from core of my heart on Department of University School of Education for giving your precious time. Thank you very much. Over to Anjali.
Thank you so much, Dhananjay, sir. Thank you. So thank you again, Pankaj sir. now we are at the end of the session, and yes, so I request all the participants, and I should thanks to all the participants for having the patience listening in this faculty development programs, because, and we are very sorry that we can't unmute you in between the session. And now again, we will meet tomorrow at 1 p.m. for the next session. So thank you once again.